Welcome, everyone, to the Union Federation podcast here on the Fandom Podcast Network, where we discuss both Star Trek and, of course, the Orville. My name is Kevin. I'm going to be your captain. We got a little bit of a skeleton crew here because, people doing other missions, people getting some flu from alien planets and stuff like that. But don't worry, we got you. We're going to have a fun show here. And, of course, I'd like to welcome one of my co-hosts here back, Haley Stoddard, the Oracle and Science Officer. How are you, Haley? Good to see you.
Hello. I'm so glad to be here. I got my second pip.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm still working on my second one, and I've been in many other dimensions, and people make fun of me. So,
I know it's so hard. But yes, I got my second pip, so you need to come with me, and then you can get yours too, because
Yes, definitely. So it's just going to be me and you today, but that's good. We can handle the show. Kyle's not feeling well; he's under the weather. Amy's got other missions on her patrol, but they'll be back. And as I mentioned, this is, of course, Lower Deck Season 5. This is Episode 9, Fissure Quest. The second to last episode here. So, of course, this is Union Federation, here on the Fandom Podcast Network and the BQN, celebrating Season 5. I'm getting a little sad. There's only one more episode left after this one. So, yes, but we did want to let you guys know stuff that's been happening around the Union Federation podcast and coming soon. Of course, recently we had a fun trip down revisiting the Next Generation, Star Trek, of course, and we talked about every 2-part episode. That was a lot of fun. And coming just around the New Year's, we're going to be revisiting the Orville. How? Well, we're going to be celebrating the Orville crew profiles, and we're going to be looking at each of the main cast members and the crews. And the first one we're going to be discussing is Lieutenant Alara Katan. Yes, Haley.
Speaking of the Orville, did you see I guess no, it's the Praetor. Never mind. I'm thinking the other fun sci-fi movie. Jeez Louise, Haley.
Which one are you talking about?
Hallmark. They have the ship from Galaxy Quest.
Oh, I saw that. Yes. It's funny you mentioned that too, because when I was in Australia a few months ago, I don't know if did you ever see the I remember they showed it in the movie theaters for a brief time. It was the documentary about the fans and the anniversary and stuff. Well, I found it on Blu-ray out there, but it was way too expensive. So I found it on eBay and I bought it. And I saw that Galaxy Quest ship. What do they call it again? What's the name of it?
The Praetor.
Praetor, yeah. That thing's gorgeous looking. I kind of want to get that.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I'm thinking ships and my brain's all.
Hey, it's a Galaxy Quest. We can mention it here on Union Fed because, well, it's pretty much one of the best Star Trek movies of all time. So, of course, back to the Orville Hill, where we'll be covering the crew profiles and we'll be discussing Lieutenant Alara Katan first. So, no Star Trek news. We're going to go ahead and get right into this week's Episode 9 of Fissure Quest. And let's go ahead and hit our first away mission right now. Again, spoiler alert, guys. If you haven't seen this episode, pause this right now and go watch it because it's awesome. And then come back and get the rest of us here. This is our episode review, our Admiral's Log episode synopsis. I'd like to turn over, of course, to our Oracle here. Haley, do you mind reading that with us here?
Of course. William Boimler, a clone of Brad created in a transporter accident, is the captain of a vessel assigned to investigate the rifts between parallel universes and protect the integrity of the multiverse. His crew consists of alternate universe versions of characters from other Star Trek series, including many copies of Harry Kim. He rescues a duplicate of Mariner, who is an engineer, and she devises a way to track the vessel creating the rifts. They find its captain is a version of Lily Sloan, the co-inventor of warp drive, who instead invented interdimensional travel and has been exploring the multiverse. The rifts left open are an unexpected side effect. The only Harry Kim to achieve the rank of lieutenant hijacks Sloan's ship and kidnaps the other Kims, intending to take them to a reality where they are respected. This proves to be a disaster and creates a burst of energy that threatens to destroy all universes. Captain Boimler decides to channel all that energy into his own universe, trusting Brad Boimler and his friends on the Cerritos to be able to defuse it before their entire universe is destroyed, thus saving the multiverse in the process.
I gotta say,
Ooh.
seeing the different versions of characters and stuff was good too. Mariner in the yellow tunic, I thought looked kind of cool. That was kind of neat. So yeah. So let me get your first reactions to this episode. It didn't go the way that I thought it was, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. So what is your thoughts?
Yeah, I was not expecting it to be, a character and essentially characters. I need to call up like a screen and because I'm pretty sure some of those are other alternate characters. I'm pretty sure the Vulcan was like T'Pau.
I was wondering about that. Yeah.
And so I really want to see like the cast that Lily's. I need to see what they are and kind of determine who's who, because I feel like they're also alternate versions of
here's a for the video here. Here's a group shot of almost everyone here.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering like if it's an alternative to Pow.
Yeah, they didn't really dive deep into those two.
Yeah, they really didn't. And I mean, you could easily call, the other one, it could be Romulan instead of Vulcan. I know he's not.
Right.
And so that could be an alternate reality version of some, Romulan that we've encountered quite a lot. And it throws you off because, the other three are wearing Enterprise uniforms.
I know, right? Yeah. Which I love seeing, by the way.
Yeah, I loved. But it doesn't necessarily mean anything because Lily's wearing one too. So, they could be from her time frame, right? And just alternate version. Anyway, definitely a direction I was not expecting it to go. I definitely enjoyed this episode, and it's been a hot minute since I've really liked any of the episodes. So I'm interested to see what happens in the finale, the final episode. And I might bring up a topic. I could bring it up now if you like.
Oh, please go ahead.
Or later. This is very callback to the alternative factor from the original series. Listeners, if you have not watched this, what
give us a lowdown of what that one was about, because I know you're up on that more than I am. So yeah.
Yeah. So the alternative factor is this episode where the crew of the Enterprise, they come across this person. And his name is Lazarus. And they rescue him and they bring him aboard. Well, it turns out there's two versions of Lazarus. And they are fighting each other. And essentially what it is, and I have argued that this episode is not as ridiculous as it is, and people should appreciate it, because if the two Lazaruses had not gone back together and whatnot, it would have destroyed the universe. So they were fighting each other because one had created something and the other one was trying to stop him from destroying the universe. And if that had happened, there would have been no more other Star Trek episodes, because if the universe was destroyed that Star Trek existed in, it would be done. That was it. No more.
Interesting.
So this is kind of the same thing, right? So we have all these alternate timelines, which we've all known as Star Trek fans have existed. It's been talked about since TNG, that there's these alternate versions. Every time you come to a fork in the road and you make a choice, there's another version of you that has made the other choice, and then it goes off and it's just infinite, hence multiverse, right? So this is interesting because it just makes me think of that alternative factor. Like if all of the different versions of yourself are gone, then it's just it. There is no more, and there will be no more Star Trek because there is no more universe. There can't be any more creation of anything else.
Fascinating. I hadn't thought about that. Thanks for the insight on that, because, well, it's funny because it kind of ties into what I was thinking here is, so we get the we get the alternate universe Boimler, who is of course the captain of this different version of a Defiant class starship. But I love the fact that he's just so over the trope of alternate universe characters, and I find it funny because I feel like the writers are kind of not calling out fans, but recognizing that, yeah, sometimes it might get a little silly. Expect more of it and just accept it. I don't know. What is your thoughts on that? Because I'm kind of like on the fence of it. Like, you're not making fun of yourself here, but you are recognizing that there's so many different versions of different people throughout other different stories and iterations of Star Trek. I thought it was kind of interesting and funny at the same time.
Yeah, I loved that aspect actually, because I sometimes feel like, okay, how many times do we have to have episodes where we encounter alternate versions? I mean, I know there are people who love the Mirror Universe stuff, and like I'm totally down for it. But after a while, it's just like, all right, again, really, can we not come up with something else? It's the same thing as I have with, a lot of Hollywood stuff with movies. Can you not come up with something your own? Like you just have to recreate and redo the same movie with just different people in it and different, like, new, fresher actors. Like, be creative and come up with something yourself. And so sometimes, like, I like it, but it does get kind of jarring and a little like, okay,
it's funny. It's funny the way that you phrase that, because so many of us say that, another reboot, another remake, blah, blah, blah. But I can't, I guess it depends on how it's done. But I feel that there's an audience that, whether they admit it or not, they do want something familiar, and it makes them feel comfortable with it. And the reason why I bring that up is when you watch a Hallmark movie, you know what's going to happen at the end, but you kind of want to see how they get to it, because usually it's always, there might be some similarities. Yes, the girl's going to marry a prince, or the rock star, or famous person's going to come back home and fall in love with the old love, but you kind of want to see how it's going to happen, even though you know what's going to happen, So I feel like, but I still am kind of curious. I want to see what's going to happen. So I just feel like this show's brilliant in the way that, we're going to kind of call ourselves out for doing what we're doing, but we're still going to make fun of it, So.
No, that's
all
fair.
right. Let's get into some fun Star Trek trivia here. Now I got one trivia here, but we got a lot of Trek tropes and canon connections, and we'll take some turns here. And kind of speaking of original series here, if you want to get one here, there's a mention of a big Spock in the reference to the animated series episode, The Infinite Vulcan, which features a giant clone of Mr. Spock. Do you remember this, Haley?
Yes, I do.
So for the Trek tropes and tributes, why don't you go ahead and give us the first one there?
All right. So believing that someone is causing you harm, but discovering their motives are different and innocent has been common trope in Star Trek, stretching all the way back to TOS's The Devil in the Dark and all the way through Discovery's 4th season. That's very true. I feel like it's just a thing, it's that assuming, right? Because we as humans do it. We assume that we know, and we really don't know someone's motives for doing something until we actually talk to them. And sometimes we're accurate and sometimes we're not. True.
Yeah. Good lesson. So we got a lot of fun canon connections here. And by the way, I did want to give a shout out. Of course, we got Trek Core. They do a great job of doing these articles, and I want to shout out to Alex Perry's article here about Fissure Quest, the episode, and I pulled these from here. So shout out to them; they do a great job covering it here. So the emergency medical hologram based on Dr. Julian Bashir's Alexander Siddig is a concept that was explored in the Prime timeline in Dr. Bashir, I presume. What you got next for us?
Most of the Harry Kims are dressed in the regular Voyager era Starfleet uniform, though a few wear the gray-shouldered Starfleet uniform from the Next Generation movies and Deep Space Nine. There's also a singular Kim wearing the racing uniform from Drive. What? I don't know what that is. Sorry.
I think that was a Voyager episode called Drive.
I'm so bad about the Voyager
stuff.
No, I watched it, but I'm like, I don't know.
I'm wondering if, if they actually thought through how many Harry Kims and why they're wearing their certain stuff. They're all, or was it just let's give him this one, let's give him that one. It doesn't matter. Boimler speculates whether the occupant of the rescued Starfleet escape pod will be a really big Spock. Another reference, of course, to the Infinite Vulcan seen in the skeleton in Kayshawn, his eyes wide open.
Oh yeah.
All right,
In the
here's the next one now.
reality this episode's Mariner comes from, it is Troy who has a transporter duplicate stranded on a planet for years instead of Riker, as seen in Second Chances.
I would have liked to have seen that.
It would be
The
very
US
interesting.
Beagle is I wonder if that's a shout out to the Beagle, the dog that
Mm-hmm. Archer?
from Archer's dog, the Beagle that liked cheese, even though shouldn't have been feeding him cheese. So yeah.
Yes.
The USS Beagle is a modification of the Enterprise ring ship design. I think that's this picture I have here,
Mm-hmm.
on the wreck deck of the USS Enterprise in Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Seen also in artwork on Earth in Star Trek Enterprise as a model in Star Trek Into Darkness.
Mm. I like that kind of ship. It's different and it's interesting.
Yeah.
I think, conceptually it makes sense. Like as an early warp drive kind of ship, makes sense to me.
Yeah.
This Lily Sloan comes from a reality where Zephram Cochrane helped build the quantum reality drive instead of the warp drive.
Gotcha. Go ahead and read the next two because they are referenced to Lily.
Captain Sloan's uniform is the Enterprise era jumpsuit featuring the Beagle on the mission patch. The corridors of the Beagle are the same as the Enterprise NX-01. I'm so happy they managed to find a good way of getting some Enterprise into the show. I completely agree. It's really watching that. So Captain Sloan's uniform is purple while her crew wears blue, a likely reference to how the Star Trek Enterprise costume department dyed the original purple jumpsuit uniforms to navy blue in the later half of the series. Yeah, that's right. They did kind of change color.
Yeah. Captain Sloan and the Beagle crew have ethical directives about contacting entities that have not yet developed the technology to travel between realities, which sounds like the reality hopping version of the Prime Directive. Interesting. Yes. Go ahead and hit
I feel like no
one.
other species probably has created that anyway, so they just can't talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Anyway, we get to see a Defiant class ship's bridge, mess hall, quarters, engineering, and sickbay again for the first time since Deep Space Nine. Wow,
pretty cool. I like that. I thought that was The explosion in the rift causes soliton waves to travel between and destroy reality. Soliton waves allowed for an alternative to warp design in TNG's New Ground. New Ground. What was that episode? I'm trying to remember.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, I remember. It's tough. So much.
Yeah, there's so many episodes. I think that's the one where they discover and realize that one race comes aboard the ship, and they say that going past warp.
Oh, it was like destroying
is destroying stuff, and so they had to find an alternate.
They had to put a speed limit or something, right?
Yeah,
and put buoys out, so people knew. I wonder if Klingons are cruising by going, what? Slow down to warp 1? Never! All right, we got some observation lounges here. Haley, go ahead and start us off with that one.
Yeah. The alternate yellow shirt Mariner we meet in this episode as part of Starfleet's engineering division. I actually like this version of Mariner. Timid,
I did too. I liked how she also, you notice she was a little more, she says, I think it was Lily Sloan was mentioning something needed to be done, and she's like, "I'm on it." She jumped on it right away. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Given that Curzon Dak's dialogue has only ever been previously spoken through Rene Auberjonois in the character's merger with Odo, that makes Fred Taskascore. I forget how you say his last name. Taskascore. Forgive me, Fred. The canonical voice of Curzon Dax moving forward. So that's interesting. He's the one that does Shax's voice, and I can never pronounce his last name. So yeah. Go ahead and read us the next one there.
T'Pol is an, quote, expert in human emotions after being married to Trip Tucker for decades, telling us that this T'Pol got the happy ending she wanted with Tucker. Aww.
I would have loved to have seen that developed more. I would love to have seen them as a couple, just something. I liked that was a thing that they mentioned. So yeah. T'Pol's outfit bears a great similarity to the garments worn by her mother to Les in the Enterprise episode Home. And I believe that's the picture I have up here. So there you go. All right. Go ahead and give us the next one there.
Yeah. Andrew Robinson and Alexander Siddig reprise their roles as Garrick and Bashir, respectively, and bring to canon the relationship between Garrick and Bashir that many fans have wanted to see, and that the actors themselves have acted out in fan gatherings on prior occasions.
They're a couple. I love it.
I know.
You know, I thought that was cool. Yeah.
Chloe was sitting here on the couch, and granted, she wasn't really paying attention, but she was like, what? Because she's seen and paid attention a little bit to Deep Space Nine, but we haven't watched it. And she just looks at me, and I'm like, some people ship them. And she's just like, no. Sorry, listeners that shipped those two. Sorry.
Okay, so this mention, I noticed it right away, and I'm glad the article here on Trek Core mentioned this. And this tickled me pink because I'm a huge fan of this series. A lot of people don't like it, but one of the potential villains Boimler theorizes about is the Borgified Kirk, which might be a passing reference. It's not a might, it is, of the William Shatner novel The Return, where the Borg play a role in bringing Captain Kirk back to life after the events of Star Trek Generations. Now, this is what a lot of fans, including myself, refer to as the Shatnerverse, because I'm in that camp of I wish. And my good friend Norman Lau is also a fan of this. Of why did you have to kill off Kirk? You didn't have to kill off Kirk, but they did in Generations. Well, in this series that is co-written by Shatner and I forget the other authors who did most of the work, basically. But the audiobooks are all all voiced by Captain Kirk. And I want to say there's like around 7 or 8 books of this. What happens is that he's dead, but his body is resurrected because he's buried there on the planet by an uneasy alliance by the Romulans and the Borg. Because what they want to do is bring him back to life and use all of the secrets that he knows about the Federation to wage war against the Federation with his uneasy alliance. Of course, stuff happens and the alliance breaks apart and he's able to become unborgified, and he still has like little Borg nanites in him and stuff like that. But he basically becomes part of the Federation again, but he ends up like meeting like a half Klingon woman. They fall in love. They have a kid. You know, and it just goes on, and he lives this life that what would have happened if he hadn't died. And I like it.
Interesting. I think I can see Kirk, you know, with as much as the best of both worlds, those episodes and like the subsequent episodes of, you know, Picard dealing with, you know, being Borged.
Well, he like visits Deep Space Nine.
I can see Shatner though, like wanting to have kind of that same story because so many fans love that aspect of TNG.
He admits in a book that he came out afterwards that he was not happy with his death in that movie. And this book series allowed him to explore a what happened. And I love the fact that he reads all the audiobooks. I own them all, and they're fun series. There's some of them are cheesy, you know, but I don't care. You know, it's just fun to see him back in Trek, you know, mingling with characters from Deep Space Nine and TNG again. So, you know, I liked it. It was good. So go ahead and hit us with the next one there.
Yeah. Sloane's explanation of the exploratory power of traveling between different realities is touching. It's fun to learn about aliens, but learning about humanity, that's something else. I've met humans who've built rings around the sun. I've met others whose ships are the size of continents. I'm learning about what humans can be, mapping our potential. So far, it's limitless. I have to agree. That was pretty neat.
All right. And the article closes out saying Fissure Quest provides an explosive love letter to Star Trek franchise as a whole and takes Lower Decks to the maximum. It's capable sets up big stakes for the series finale, which looks like it'll focus more tightly on our core characters as they work to save their universe from destruction. I was a little surprised that this this kind of happened more with Deep Space Nine, where you would have a 2-part episode, but each episode has a different name. And I didn't expect this to be like a cliffhanger thing leading into the last one. I'm not disappointed by it, but were you surprised by that?
No, actually. And I'm really excited because I mean, way the episode was going, I didn't feel like they could go anywhere else. like I was expecting the next one was going to be a resolution. I didn't think they were going to find a resolution to
Right.
the whole multiverse being destroyed in like matter of seconds. So yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get into the next away mission. All right. Of course, shout out again to Trek Core. They gave us some great stuff to follow here for Lower Decks. And topic number 1. Holy Harry Kims, played by Garrett Wang, of course. Article says, if I have one criticism about this episode, and it's a minor one, is that I'm pretty tired of the Harry Kim as perpetual ensign meme. The show can't have come and gone without including the Star Trek's franchise's forever ensign, as Garrett Wang calls himself in the introduction to his Star Trek podcast, The Delta Flyers. But this is one of the jokes that's more than played out. Everyone else about this episode was so much fun. I can forgive it for being a little obvious with the Harry Kim of all. I love this personally. I love the shout out. I thought it was funny. I love the one that actually has 2 pips. I didn't have an issue with it. Did you? Or did you like it?
No, I thought it was fun. And I loved how William was like, yeah, we have Harry Kims. Like it's a disease. Like we have Harry Kims.
Or it's like having your annoying in-laws over,
Yeah. I do think, I kind of agree. The forever and ensign kind of thing. I think it would have been fun, if more than one had like more, or like if he'd come in and he had like 3 pips,
Right.
or something. But the 2 pip thing was kind of fun, and I love when it gets pointed out. He has 2 pips. And not expecting but I loved it because then it brought in this aspect of the one that had the 2 was like, I want to see my other versions of myself get the respect and get, what they deserve, their promotions that they deserve for all their hard work. And so I love that idea because yes, it's tiring, but at the same time, they used it in a good way because it was like Kim himself saying, okay, I'm tired of not being respected and not getting the promotion I deserve. And all these other versions of me should get it too. And so it was almost, like, because I mean, Kim, he never says anything about it. He's like, no, it's okay, So
what I can't wait to hear is when he does his next public appearance at a Trek event and he gets asked about doing this episode. I have to assume the recording process had to be a blast for him.
Oh yeah. If he's at FanX next year, because our intention is to go, if he's there, I will ask.
Where's FanX being held at?
It's in Salt Lake.
Gotcha. Yeah, that had to be a blast for him.
All right, been before,
Topic number 2 we have here is T'Pol returns. Jolene Blaylock. Perhaps the most surprisingly and wonderful to me was the return of T'Pol, Jolene Blaylock. Credited here simply as Jolene, per her request. Aside from a brief appearance at one of the Star Trek Day celebrations several years ago, Blaylock has hardly acted or been involved in any Star Trek related for many years. She's married to Live Nation CEO Michael Rapino in 2003 and is now heavily involved in their joint charitable organization, the Rapino Foundation. T'Pol is one of the greatest Star Trek characters ever, in my opinion, and to have Blaylock back voicing the character and one who got the happy life she deserved with Trip Tucker was a real delight. I wanted to ask you about this before we get into the return of T'Pol here. Come to think of it, I don't know. Jolene has not made a lot of appearances, right? Do we know why? Has she ever addressed that? Or does anyone know? Is it just,
I want to say I've heard something, but I can't remember if I've ever heard anything specific as to why. I mean, I think fans kind of treat it like, we do with Captain Sisko. It's just, it's totally up to them, and they've removed that part of themselves, because they haven't stayed in acting. And so
she's a beloved character. That whole cast is,
Yeah. And so, yeah, I'm not 100% certain, but I can understand it. I mean, it's, because maybe it's because of, the vastness and the craziness that Star Trek is, the love it's, maybe it's just overwhelming and too much. I think, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, speaking of T'Pol, she has a sizable role in this episode. It was great to see her character, especially the dichotomy between her and Curzon. Your thoughts on T'Pol Returns?
Yeah, it was nice to see it. I mean, I will say, so recently I've just watched Enterprise, and I had to grow to like her character. Like, I enjoyed her towards the end, but I didn't really like her all that much. I was not sure what to think. And then, I really did enjoy her character towards the end of Enterprise. So it was nice to see her. And yes, getting to know that she had that happy ending with Trip was just kind of nice that, and again, Multiverse says that there is one where Trip, and her did live on until, old age. And so, yeah.
Yeah. I loved, I thought she was great. I really liked the storylines evolved around her, and just I thought she was a great character. So yeah.
I love her telling Curzon to like ease up on the salt.
Yeah, this is true.
And I like that they were all eating like proper ramen.
Yeah,
I didn't notice that. Like, that was great. I was like, and then she was eating sushi, and I'm like, okay.
All right,
fancy up in this ship mess hall.
This is my favorite character to return to Star Trek, and that is Lily Sloan, Alfre Woodard. The article says it was also rich and surprising that the big bad of this season wasn't a big bad at all. After season 4 built up a villain reveal in the form of Nick Locarno, it would have felt overly repetitive to have done again this season with a different set of circumstances. Instead, the decision to make it an unintended consequences of the Enterprise era Lily Sloan, played by and voiced by Alfre Woodard. Commanding a ship exploring the multiverse was extremely smart, and Sloan's argument in favor of the value of exploring the multiverse was pretty compelling, actually. I really enjoyed that amid all the action adventure. This is a story about consequences of exploration. That's a Star Trek episode right there. I thought that was a great point, Haley. Mm-hmm. I thought that was really, really neat. And I wanted to kind of get your extended thoughts on that. But I just was remembering the scene that I really enjoyed in First Contact with her and Picard. And Picard is obviously on edge with the whole return of the Borg, him being haunted by it. And then she's basically calling him out, getting in his face. And then like, oh, you broke your little ships. It's a great moment. Oh, Alfre Woodard. Oh, American actress. Just love her. So glad that she came back in this. Want to get your thoughts on her return?
Yeah, it was interesting to see that it was, a version of Lily Sloan, and this, and nice. Like, I'm surprised, honestly, that we didn't somehow get her before.
Like this actually, sorry to interrupt, but this brings up the wonder thing of like, she stayed in Starfleet, or we have a version of her in Starfleet doing this whole thing. And I love the fact that we saw that. Like, one of the characters I wish we could have seen return in Starfleet was the blonde lady that knew about the whales in, like I would have liked to have seen what became of her character. But anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. And I think that's one of those things where, it is nice that Lower Decks does this. It brings in things that fans probably would have loved to see more of, but we just never really got, in some capacity, like there could have been some book about Lily Sloan, or she wrote some book or something. We talk about Zefram Cochrane all the time, but what about Lily? I mean, she was a pivotal point in that story. So to have her character was really lovely. I really enjoyed that. And I loved that, again, it is this never-ending question of what consequences come from us going out and exploring, because a lot of the time TOS was a really big thing of this, going down, interacting, and then leaving.
Yeah.
And what are the consequences, whether positive or negative? What are the ramifications of us going down and interacting with other species, other humanoids, going out? And I mean, as clean as you are, like, there's always some trace, and how does that affect the planet and the ecosystem and all these different things? And that is something that is really pivotal because that is Star Trek. That is us now. We go out, we explore, we find new species, we find new civilizations, new colonies living out in jungles that we didn't think existed. We're always finding some new species down in the depths of the ocean. And what impact are we leaving on that ecosystem and on those people? Even if we don't interact with them, we still leave a piece of ourselves there. And that is so Star Trek, and also so important for us now and in Star Trek itself.
Yeah.
And we really need to be conscious of that.
I love seeing Lily Sloan back in Star Trek. It's funny too, because Alfre Woodard had a small part in the Marvel Universe recently. Her son was killed while he was visiting this country where the Avengers were battling the big bad at the time, and it was the moment that turned, because she had a great scene against Tony Stark, and it was that moment that he kind of really started to question what the Avengers were meant, and that turned into the Civil War between Captain America and Civil War. And she had a pivotal moment, and I remember watching that scene going, man, I miss her from Star Trek. I want to see her again. And we got to see her in this. I thought it was great. So, yeah. All right. Our final topic here. It's Garak. It's Bashir. It's Curzon Dax too. And the article ends up saying, after 5 seasons of responsibly playing with the toys in the toy box, I am thrilled that for the show's penultimate episode, the Lower Decks crew went all out. Garak, Bashir, Harry Kim, Curzon Dax, T'Pol, Lily Sloan. This episode has it all and more. It's a joyous melange of Star Trek surprises that kept building on itself. And for one episode, Lower Decks gorged itself on Star Trek. I thought it was a great way of putting that. I'm so glad that it did. One of the things, 2 of the things that really jumped out is, besides just the characters coming back, was that I felt like we got character development from like a what if scenario with Bashir and Garak. I love those 2. We always love seeing them in Deep Space Nine talking. But we also get Curzon Dax flushed out here to a certain degree. And I thought that was fantastic, So your thoughts on these other characters returning and the changes with them and such?
Yeah, no, I think it's fun, Curzon Dax, just because Dax talks so much about him in Deep Space Nine because he was, the more recent host. I feel like as Star Trek fans, you really kind of know how he would be, right? He's this older guy and he hits on women and he's just kind of,
And plus too, his relationship with Cisco and how far that went,
Yeah. And so I think there's a lot that we kind of already know, but it's fun to see it in a actual Curzon Dax. And like, oh, I should have stretched, and hey guys, you want to come and fight, like bring it on, because we get that. And so it's nice to see these nuances kind of come to life in the character itself rather than through Dax. And so that's fun. And I love that despite Garak being the doctor, he's still not just plain simple Garak. And that's nice, and we didn't get that
argue because it's fun.
Yeah. And I like that aspect of him, like that he's not just Garak. Didn't come till the end, right? The whole time you're thinking like, he's a completely different Garak. He was never, in deep with things, and he wasn't the spy, and he wasn't, all this stuff. He was just Garak. And it really wasn't just Garak, but you didn't get that till the end. And I think it was great.
So as we wrap this up, I want to put us both on the spot here, Haley. Okay, so I have the list of all of the guest stars that came in on this. Of course, we had, and there's special guest stars, which had Jolene Blalock as T'Pol, Andrew Robinson as Elam Garak, Alexander Siddig as Julian Bashir, Garrett Wang as Harry Kim, and of course, Alfre Woodard as Lily Sloan. I want you to pick your favorite guest appearance from this episode. Which one is it? And why?
Okay.
Tough, right?
Yeah, that is tough. Oh gosh. I'm gonna go with Lily Sloan.
Oh, why?
Because I think, as the article pointed out, having a big baddie who's not actually baddie and realizing the consequences of their actions and their choices, and rather than just brushing it aside, wanting to actually do what's right to fix the issue and to make sure that things go right, because again, that means that they can't necessarily go back to their verse either, and is really wonderful. And again, that giving that reason of like why we have Star Trek, why we have Starfleet, why we have it is because we want to go out and we want to explore and we want to find and we want to understand. And we want to understand ourselves better, but we also want to understand others. And I think that's incredibly beautiful and powerful. And that's what Star Trek has always been, is not only understanding others, but how that can help us better understand ourselves. And again, to see this character after all these years, I mean, seriously, in all the iterations and all the time travel episodes, how we ended up not having something referencing Lily Sloan with all the Zephyr Cochrane references, that we did not have something from her, which is really actually really poignant if you think about it. Why? Because she's a woman. And I know it's not like a huge thing, and I don't want to say that, but at the same time, like, it is kind of easy to say that her place was underscored because she's a woman.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. And it's funny. I'm glad you mentioned her because that's my pick too. Seeing Alfred Royd return as Lily Sloan, because this is one of those characters that I felt made such an impact in that movie. And that, and the other thing too, is not only seeing her in actual Starfleet uniform and doing Starfleet stuff, but the fact that I wasn't disappointed that there was this big bad, that we actually had her as a character wanting to explore the value of the multiverse, which I think is fascinating. That's something that, you kind of feel like that would be like a Section 31 on a negative trip type thing that they might do. And as the article says, that amid all the action adventure, this is a story about consequences of exploration. And if anyone can pull that off and be pulled from a different universe, I'm glad it was Lily Sloan, because I could see her doing that. And I love hearing Alfred Woodard bring that. I would love to hear her be interviewed about her returning to this character. That must have been a blast for her as well.
Yeah.
She probably thought she would never, ever step foot, even though virtually in, Lily Sloan's shoes again. I just thought that was great. So yeah.
Yeah, she deserved her time in being able to get out and explore.
Agree. All right, let's go ahead and let's wrap things up. So this, of course, is Star Trek Lower Decks, Season 5, the final season. This is Episode 9, Fissure Quest, and Episode 206, A Union Federation. No Ready Room. They're not doing it. I hope they do one next week, maybe, hopefully. I would love to see these guys interviewed again. But it is called, the final episode is called The New Next Generation. And I'm a little worried going into it because I love the fact that this Boimler sent the information to, I guess, Prime Boimler, and he freaked out as Boimler.
Oh yeah, of course.
The world's gonna end. Like, is he gonna mess things up? I'm kind of curious where we're gonna go from that.
I don't know. He's got the full Riker beard thing going on now.
Yeah, it's finally grown in. It's looking good. So before we get our final thoughts on this episode, I don't know what's going to happen in the next episode now. Of course, we get the new Next Generation. Maybe we'll get some promotions from people, maybe some reassignments to other ships. I don't know. But what do you think is going to happen going into the next episode?
I mean,
right?
It could go so many ways because it's the end of Lower Decks, right? So obviously, I think they have to factor in, like, it can't end, right? Because this is in between, kind of like, yes, we get some other stuff. We get references to kind of everything, but it's kind of in that time frame of when we had TNG, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager, right? So we know that, like, the multiverse can't be destroyed. So I'm going to go with that. Like, they find a way to fix it.
Right.
It's not destroyed. But that
Could one
doesn't
of our crew
necessarily.
members go with them? Maybe. Sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah, either that or something happens. Well, I think the Williams ship, like they're stuck where they are. There's no more time travel shiftings, right? Because the end of this episode, they get it to go where it's just the Cerritos, right? So it's at that timeline, and it's only at that timeline, and they have to fix it, or it's going to destroy their timeline. And
okay.
so, I mean, it could end up being something where just their timeline gets destroyed. It could be something where they save it. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out next week, but let's get our final thoughts on this episode. So it didn't go. I feel like the last few episodes didn't go where we thought because of the episode title, but I'm not disappointed. What are your final thoughts on this episode of the Fissure Quest?
I think thus far of this entire season, this is my favorite episode.
It's a good one. Yeah.
You know, the episode before this, I was like, okay. And you know, a couple episodes, I was like, okay, like kind of seemed there in the middle, like those middle few episodes. Like I liked the first couple episodes, and then kind of there in the middle section, I was like, it's kind of like a book. It pulls you in, and then you kind of get into it, and you're like, I don't know, but you keep going because you're hoping it gets better, and it's getting better at the end. So like the closing is going to be really good too. So that's my hope.
Yeah, that's a good call. What's interesting too is, I'll be perfectly honest with you. When I first watched this, I was kind of like, wait, what did I just watch? I was happy, of course, with all of the, all the cameo, not necessarily cameos, but all the characters that we've seen from other previous Star Treks. But the story itself was where I was kind of caught up going, what the hell is happening here? What's going on? And then I had to like listen to stuff again, listen to what Lily Sloan's character said again. And then it kind of started coming back. And then when I rewatched it today before this podcast, I'm like, oh, it was so much fun. I get it. Yes. And it kind of started to click. So I don't know if I think I was just distracted by all of the cool characters from the previous. It was like all these shiny new toys, but then I forgot that there was a plot here to pay attention to. I guess that's what happened.
That's fair. That's fair.
All right. Well, this has been, of course, our Fissure Quest here, episode 9. This has been our final thoughts, and let's go ahead and get into subspace signals. This is the Union Federation podcast here on the Fandom Podcast Network, and of course the BQN here on the Fandom Podcast Network. And of course, if you can't, please follow us on YouTube. If you're watching this, thank you very much. If you're listening to this, make sure you check us out, give us a subscribe, comment below, let us know what you guys think here. And also, too, you can find the Fandom Podcast Network on Facebook. Our master feed for all of our audio podcasts can be found at fpnet.podbean.com. You can also find us on X and Instagram. And now we are on Blue Sky.
Woo-hoo!
Right there, Blue Sky. Excited that we are on there as well. And of course, our cohorts, which are not here now, you can find Amy on X and Miss Amy Nelson, Instagram at Amy Nelson 522. Also at Blue Sky at BQN Podcast. Kyle, you can find him on X at AKyleW, Instagram, and Threads at AKyleFandom, AKyleW on Discord, K-Sport on Letterboxd, and of course, he is AKyleW on Blue Sky. Haley, where can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram and Blue Sky. I'm at Trekkie01D.
I love the traffic the Blue Sky is getting right now. It's a breath of fresh air. I love it. I love it.
I love all the new followers. Like in the last last week or so, I mean, it just skyrocketed. I think the amount of people post-election that have left and jumped over to Blue Sky has been really great. It's been nice because I've been getting a lot more interaction. So I'm trying to be on there a lot more as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's been great. Well, my name is Kevin. You can find me on X, Instagram, Threads, Discord, and Letterboxd at Spartan_Phoenix. And on Blue Sky, you can find me at Spartan Phoenix. And of course, please head on over to BQN. They're on Instagram and Blue Sky. And also, they have their Facebook group, the BQN Collective, just like we have ours, the Union Federation, where we talk Star Trek and the Orville. And also, too, if you like what you are watching or like what you're listening to, give us some support there on TeePublic. You got a Orville shirt right there on TeePublic, right? Yeah.
Yep.
And I've got my Fandom Podcast Network hoodie here, but you can also get Union Federation logos on your shirts and stuff. And every time you get something there from the Fandom Podcast Network listing of shows and hats and mugs and shirts, we get a little kickback that keeps us exploring here on the Union Federation Starship here. So, yeah. But anyway, Haley, thank you so much for joining me here. I'm looking forward to next week. I can't wait to see how this wonderful show ends. I hope that after the show ends, we get something again, whether they come back in live action like they did with Strange New Worlds or maybe a movie. I don't want this to be the last that we see of Lower Decks.
That's fair. Who knows what we'll get?
All right. Well, until next time, everyone, live long and prosper. And without a doubt, this is the weirdest ship in the fleet. We'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.